Hello YouTube, Ace here, and we are doing a review of the movie Dunkirk. Now, some of you have probably had a look at the Rotten Tomatoes score of this movie and noticed that it's extremely high. And I hate to say it, but if you go into the movie based just on those Rotten Tomato reviews, you might be in for a little bit of disappointment. Now, don't get me wrong, the movie Dunkirk is by no means bad, but it's not perfect, at least not the way that Rotten Tomatoes would have you believe. And I would say that the reviews may have created some unreasonably high expectations. Now, before we go any further, I think it's important to understand the historical context of the movie. Dunkirk is, of course, about the Dunkirk evacuations during the early days of World War II. It takes place towards the very end of the Battle of France. At this point, the German army has been able to basically flank, surround, and ultimately just pin the British and elements of the French, Belgian, and Dutch armies at the Belgian coast, most notably at Dunkirk. And this movie, as mentioned, is about the evacuation of these troops, trying to save them. There's about 400,000 men on this beach, and the British have only a set amount of time to get them out. Now, with this in mind, because it's a historical film, I should mention that there are a few historical inaccuracies here and there. This is pretty much inevitable with any Hollywood flick, I believe. For example, towards the beginning of the movie, there's a hospital ship that gets sunk. This isn't really a spoiler because it's actually in the trailer. Now, there was no actual hospital ship sunk at the beaches of Dunkirk. There was the SS Paris, which was a hospital ship that was sunk en route to Dunkirk. However, I believe that this may actually be a depiction of the German air raids over the SS Worthing, which was actually dive-bombed, as the movie depicts at Dunkirk, at the beach. It's just, it was damaged rather than sunk. So this was probably done for, well, usual Hollywood flair, I suppose, to drum up extra drama. Now, that being said, there are actually some really good historical accuracy points this movie has. For a start, it shows the French soldiers as being the ones that played a key role in defending the beaches, which they were. And you will see them trying to get onto these ships and being held back, which seems to be something that was, to an extent, done. There was a preference to evacuate the British over the French, although many French soldiers were evacuated towards the end of the battle, which, again, the movie actually hints that this would occur. Another thing that the movie got right is that a lot of soldiers in desperation ended up using ships that had been beached at low tide, wait for the tide to pick up the ship, and then just sail out with that. And in other cases, soldiers had to make makeshift docks, if you will, by waiting for the tides to go low, parking some trucks or whatnot out there, pinning them down with sandbags and all that, and making ramps on top of them. Again, this is something that actually happened. So this movie does actually get a surprisingly decent amount of things right in that regard. But with regards to the movie design itself, not talking about just historical accuracy, the movie shows three different perspectives in general, taking place over three spans of time, which can be a bit confusing. You've got the men that are on the beaches or boots on the ground, and the events that take place there take place over the course of 1 week. You have the civilian sailors going out to Dunkirk in the little ships to try to rescue the men, and the event that's depicted there takes place over the course of 1 day in the movie. And then you have the RAF flying cover overhead, and the particular mission it showcases only showcases one mission over the span of 1 hour. And it shows these at different intervals. Towards the end, these different time spans eventually overlap, and you'll see the same things over. Now, this actually might be part of the cause for the high reviews, because it's doing things different from how you would typically see a movie done. There is one good thing, hands down, about this, and that there is never a dull moment in Dunkirk. There just isn't. There's always something going on in the movie to keep you invested to a point. However, these three different time spans, the way they're set up, can be a little bit confusing. You do have to pay attention a lot, and it can spoil certain events. As we said, certain scenes will play out the exact same, only you will see them from a different point of view. So you will know what's happening in certain places. Another thing to mention is that there's not a lot of dialogue in this movie. This is a movie that you that is very visual. You have to keep your eyes peeled on the screen and see what's going on. You could argue, by the way, about the confusion bit, that is a deliberate design choice, and to be fair, this is a war flick, so there should be some confusion. But it is, again, something that needs to be addressed. Now, there is a scene towards the end of the movie that kind of does not go very well. It's basically, this movie goes full Hollywood towards the very end for the pilot arc. And you will know what I'm talking about when you see it, but I'm not going to spoil what exactly goes on. Another thing to mention is that the music is good, but it is slightly used too much. Certain scenes would have probably been better without music than that was music, but that is a nitpick issue. Ultimately, Dunkirk is at least better than the Wonder Woman movie I saw earlier, so if Wonder Woman is kind of worth watching, then this movie is definitely worth watching. A final note, though, if you have sensitive eardrums or just hate extremely loud noises, you will hate Dunkirk, especially if you see it in IMAX, like I did. The movie is just, even by the standards of most films, is an extremely loud movie. The theater was shaking constantly. Now, I'm perfectly fine with this. My ears are pretty much shot anyway, so it's not that big of an issue for me. But I can understand how other people, it might be an issue. So if you're one of those other people, just take some earplugs or something, and there you go, problem solved. But anyways, that is ultimately my look at Dunkirk. Is it worth looking at? Yes. But it's not the perfect film that Rotten Tomato would have you believe. Do not go in there with extremely high expectations. Just lower them a little bit and you should be fine. But other than that, that's all I really have to talk about. So hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.